So now we've got a little background about my father and how he passed away. I feel I might as well go into some more detail about what's been going on in my life now that I've moved to Syracuse and got a new job at National Grid. But before I get into my new job at National Grid, I'd like to talk a little bit about a couple things. First, a couple highlights for my drive over to Syracuse, which took 3 days. Now I'm driving past Kings Island, an amusement park I have very fond memories of visiting with my dad. There's several coasters here that have been built since I last visited, but these days I'm not really as into theme parks as much. Just thought I'd grab a quick video flyby since I was taking a break around here anyway on the long drive to Syracuse. I'm on I-90 now heading towards Syracuse, and just a little while ago that wonderful GPS system that Steven installed in my Chevy Cruze made one of those characteristically brilliant remarks that only a computer could make. In 317 miles, exit right. So now I'm playing Super Dominoes, a really cool Dominoes app game that I've got for my iPad here. Game over. Normal Norm has won. So anyway, basically what I'm doing is helping to edit the GIS database for National Grid. And we're discovering that there's actually quite a few errors, and they want all of these errors fixed before they can begin preparations. Digitizing pretty much the whole electrical grid so that it can reroute power depending on peak hours and expected electrical load. It might be able to reroute power to where it's needed most. But so far we're finding that there's plenty of work to keep us busy, unlike my last job at Xcel Energy in Denver, which was over in 3 months, despite it being at least a 6-month contract position initially advertised as per MindLance's job advertisement. So here's a few shots around the work office for you to enjoy here. This is the D building basement where my future cubicle at National Grid is going to be located. As you can see, they're in the middle of cleaning everything up and getting everything set up for our move, and over here is the command center for my boss. We'll be moving down probably around April or so. Here you can see we've got several archive maps stored in these cabinets. We employees are forbidden from looking inside, of course, but it's still really interesting to have all this nearby. It's very quiet down here too compared to the rest of the office. But I'm gonna definitely miss watching the snowfall from my 3rd floor office cube that I'm in right now. Here's one of the screensavers we've got on our computers here, and it's a pretty effective message about distracted driving, if I do say so myself. So in keeping with Project 30's theme of 30 being a lucky number, I ended up taking a vacation to Vermont and New Hampshire to see the mountains in the winter time and how they compare to the mountains I'm used to. I'll go into more detail about that trip in the next episode, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I'm still in the stages of planning what all I want to do this year while I'm 30 years old. I definitely enjoyed Vermont enough that I want to try and make a trip back there in the spring to see the stay-to-stay weekend program, which is actually aimed at people like me who might be thinking about moving there. The state of Vermont is looking for people that are young and in their 20s and 30s because the population is aging, and so they're looking for replacement workers in many sectors. Beyond that, though, that's really all I've got planned for now for this year. I've only thought so far ahead. And of course, I also want to see the Seattle area as well as the Pacific Northwest and either the Big Island or Kauai in Hawaii. Or alternatively, I could just make a weekend drive up to Canada for Toronto and Niagara Falls, or just see New York City, which is a similar distance driving wise from here. So between that New England visit and those ideas I've just mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those are going to be part of my year on Earth as being 30 years old. But like I said, even I don't really know at this point what I want to do. I'm going to have to evaluate my various options and see where this job ultimately leads me and decide if it's worth it for me to try any major trips or to just focus all my money on self-preservation stuff like networking or finding a new hobby. The reason why I'm leaning towards I'll probably say yes as far as a trip goes of some kind is because I think doing nothing up here in Syracuse except for long weekend drives and sitting around playing video games will be a major eyesore. And so I imagine I'll probably want to pack this year with as much fun as possible. But it's going to be tough for me because, as I'm sure you all know, my moving to Syracuse was not a planned decision until recently. And when I say recently, I mean the month before I actually started the job. If you had asked me back in April of 2018 that I would be moving to Syracuse before the end of the year, I would have said, no, I'd rather try to stay in Colorado for now. But that job at Xcel Energy ended so suddenly, and living up in Denver was so expensive that I had to make a decision. And I had to make a decision fast because I had to decide whether I wanted to be faced with having to go back to working as a courier for Favor indefinitely while working on maps for my whereisit.guru site to hopefully boost my resume until something in my field came along, or take a chance with a location that wasn't really on my radar until recently. And so because I'm just now settling in, I suspect I'll end up spending the 2019 year doing some long weekend stuff as well as networking opportunities to try and get settled into this area should I decide I really like it after all. 2020 I'll likely do some kind of trip somewhere else in the States, and then 2021 we'll see if that's when this job is winding down and what's going on Mom and Steven's end as well. But that's just my take on what I'm probably going to end up doing for this year while I'm 30 years old. And I plan to document some of my adventures every step of the way as I go along.